Kia ora koutou and welcome back to my channel. I've been soldering now for 2 months, so this is literally the beginner's guide to soldering. What you're going to need is a good soldering iron, some solder, some solder wick just in case you have any mistakes you need to tidy up, and some copper wire cleaner, cleaning ball with some helping hands to keep your projects still, otherwise they move around all over the place. First thing we do is turn on the soldering iron. On switch, on goes the soldering iron, and we adjust the temperature to what we need for the soldering job we've got. In this case, round about 340-350 degrees Celsius is normally fine. Preparing the solder job is really important, making sure that it's nice and still and it's not going to move around on us. You can see the copper pads there that we're going to be soldering to, and I'm just putting one of the components in. It's just a resistor I have lying around. So pop the components in with the metal pins on both sides through the copper soldering pad, and you want to bend the pins ever so slightly so the component doesn't fall out before you attack it with the soldering iron. You can also sellotape the component to the other side of the board just to hold it in place while you're soldering. So with the component in place, we just want to make sure that we've got a nice solid base to solder on. And we get the solder ready and the soldering iron, and the idea is we want to heat up the component and the solder pad, the copper pad, before we introduce the solder. So we get those hot to a temperature where the solder is going to melt, and then we introduce the solder. And you want to have enough solder there where it's creating a little volcano on the pin for the component. You can see here I didn't put enough solder down, so I need a little bit more. And that's just enough. Great, much better. You can see there both pins have got solder sort of running up the middle of the pin and covering the solder pads. Now we want to snip those off just to make it nice and tidy, and then we have a clean solder job. There are times when you've maybe put too much solder on the job, or you want to remove some solder. So here I'm just giving an example where there's too much solder on this copper pad, and this is where your solder wick comes in handy. So it's braided copper, and the idea is you want to lay that on the area where you've got solder that you want to remove and heat up the braided copper and the solder together, and the solder will always migrate towards the copper. So when you heat it up, you'll see that the solder actually wicks along the copper braid, and just tidy up afterwards. Then come back with your solder and put down just the right amount of solder to create the connection that you need. And that's how you tidy up with solder wick. Finally, make sure that you keep your soldering iron in good condition. Before you solder, you want to tin the soldering iron, and that's putting a bit of solder on the heated soldering iron so that it's ready for your job. And you can see there's quite a bit of fumes coming off that soldering iron. And then once you've finished your soldering job, clean it off. You've got the copper wool and you've got a wet sponge near your soldering iron. So to summarise, don't forget, get yourself some good equipment. Make sure your workstation is nice and clear. Good soldering does take some practice. I've only been at it for 2 months and I've still got a lot to learn. Take precautions, glasses and a fume cupboard will be quite handy, and have fun.